Welcome back everyone. In this lesson we are going to talk about selectors. Now selectors are strings and we use those with locators in order to perform actions on a certain page. Actions such as click, check, fill, stuff like that. Now you cannot actually teach selectors without locators, so we are also going to show locators a bit in this lesson. But we are going to focus more on locators in the next lesson. I have here opened the Playwright documentation about selectors, and you can see from this summary over here that they have a lot of ways you can use to identify elements. Now, the most common ones would be using something like text, even though I wouldn't advise to usually rely on text if you have applications that are localized. CSS selectors and XPath selectors, these are commonly used in Selenium automation frameworks, and we are going to focus on this also in this lesson. Now, in order to test this, we are going to use a real live application, and the one I chose is Best Buy. So this is how it looks. So I'm going to choose United States. And let's check the URL over here. Okay, international, no slash. Okay, I'm going to copy this URL. And now I'm going to head back to our test that we created in the last lesson. Now, in order to proceed, I'm going to delete some stuff from over here. We don't need 2 pages. We only need one context. And this looks about right. And what I'm going to do here is, instead of navigating to Google, I'm going to pass the link for Best Buy. I'm going to insert a breakpoint over here. And let's see what happens if I run my test in debug mode for this case. So I'm expecting a Chrome browser to be launched, and it will navigate to the Best Buy page. Okay. And as you can see, we have here a pop-up. Best Buy wants to know our location. And I want to show you a quick way we can allow our browser by default to allow for location. So the way you do that is in the browser context. If we check this out, you see that you have the method is overloaded. It has 2 ways you can call it. You can pass these new context options into it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say new browser.context options, and I'm going to set permissions, and here I'm going to create a list from arrays, and I'm going to pass something called geolocation. And what this will allow is my browser will be able to read my location, and we won't have that nasty pop-up over there. I'm going to debug my test again, and now we shouldn't see that pop-up come up anymore. Okay, the page is loading, and as you can see, it doesn't ask me for the location because I already set the permission to true for this. Now, let's start with our selectors. So, to start with, I guess we should try to click one of the items in the menu over here, and let's choose deal of the day. So I'm going to inspect this one. Let's see what it has. This is actually a link, and we can see it has text. It also has a data attribute. This is a fortunate case because This will be very easy to identify. Sorry for closing that. Okay, so let's say I want to identify this by using a data attribute using XPath. So the way I do this, and I want to click on it, that's what I want to do. The way I would do that is call page.locator, and here I have the option to pass a selector. So this is how you identify elements in your page. Now an XPath usually starts like this. This means it's relative. Anyway, it will find it in a page. If we go back to our browser, we can see this tag is a link. So I will say okay. And next, I will pass the data attribute, which is called data lead. Okay, and the value, which is hdr_.d. And the last part is to actually perform an action on it. And I'm going to click it. Okay, let's stop our debug session and run our test again. And what I expect now to happen is we will navigate to Best Buy and then we will click the Deal of the Day button using an XPath selector. Okay. Now it waits for the page to be fully loaded and it has clicked the Deal of the Day button. Perfect. Okay, let's try to do this but using a CSS selector this time. So I'm going to duplicate this row, comment the first one, stop my debug session, and instead of an XPath selector, I'm going to use a CSS selector. So let's say I'm going to use the same data attribute. I'm going to copy it from here. So this is how you specify an attribute with CSS selector and the same value. Okay, so basically we have the same functionality, but this time we use the CSS selector. Now I'm not going to go into depth about how to use XPath and CSS selectors because most of you are already accustomed with this from your Selenium experience or other automation experience. Okay, so my page loaded and I have the same expectation. We will click the Deal of the Day button, yes, and we have it over here. Okay, let's try a different way of clicking this button. So this time let's use the same on a CSS selector, but we are going to use the text this time. So let's say I'm trying to search for a link that has a text value. Let's escape this. Okay. And I believe the value was Deal of the Day. I might be wrong, but we'll see soon enough. So this is a third option, this time again using CSS. And here I'm not using this data attribute. I'm using the actual text value. Now, as a best practice, the reason why they have these data attributes, I believe it's for automation, so I would always use this approach versus this one, because again, if you have your application internationalized and you switch to German, for example, it won't say Deal of the Day, it will say something else and your test will break. But if you use this approach, it will have the same data attribute and a different value for this, so it will still work with this one. But just to showcase that you can do it like this also. So I'm expecting to have the exact same behavior, and this time we will navigate to Best Buy, click Deal of the Day. So as you can see, this is the magic of Playwright. You saw that it waited for the page to synchronize, it waited for this button to be in all those states, to be attached, stable, to be able to receive events, visible, and enabled, if you remember the table from the previous lessons. Okay, I'm going to end this lesson here. See you in the next one.